to record all the streams. Are you familiar with Riverside?
I yes, I
Uh,
don't know how to use it actively, but I think someone else was using it or told me about it. But I'm familiar with it, but I'm not intimately familiar with it.
oh, okay. Because Riverside is really awesome for recording podcasts. It records on your computer, your video stream. It records on my computer, my video stream. And then when it's appropriate, then it'll upload all those videos onto the Riverside platform. What it does is it records, the best your computer will record, and it'll record the best, and the video is so much clearer. But also the audio, it doesn't matter how good the microphone is. Zoom will compress the audio, and you don't sound quite as anyway. It's no big deal for I'm on season two. I've got like 100 listeners, I think, on podcasts usually, and so I'm not going to worry too much yet. When
Uh,
we get to 1,000, then we'll have to be stricter about the quality of everything. But you look good, you sound good. I'm ready to go.
Fantastic, and likewise.
I just realized the microphone is all the way up there. Let's see, that's let's see. I think we're not going to have Claudie on this episode. She
No.
is still babysitting my niece,
Oh,
and my niece's mom, my sister, is running late, and Claudie was all upset about it, and I said, don't worry about it. Um, but anyway, we're going to miss her because she brings to the episodes the brain development expertise angle, and sometimes you say things or I say things, and she says, "Yeah, it's great because," and then fills in the scientific knowledge blank. And we're going to miss that today. But I was looking at the questions, and I think we can do a brain-free episode, right?
I like it.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. So I got your questions loaded here, and I've got my welcome bit loaded here. The bio sounded good.
The bio sound well, so I didn't see a bio. I have
I
the
didn't send
question.
you a bio.
Don't
Oh, hang on.
I may have
My
missed
bad.
it. I do have
Why
here.
is there an? Oh, you're right. Look at that. There's no bio. I don't even mention the bio. I didn't say, "Oh, and here's the bio. Can you review it?" Okay. All right. Well, here we go. Do you should I use the one that's on Podmatch? Do you like what it says there?
Sure. I mean, it's yeah, I'm pretty sure that's an accurate one. Or the most accurate at this time, perhaps. I don't even remember what it
Oh,
says.
here we go. Here it says Delphia L. Do you want the middle initial in there?
Sure.
All right. Delphia L. Howze is an award-winning, forward-thinking human resources and diversity and inclusion leader. As the CEO and founder of Howze Solutions LLC, a diversity and inclusion consultancy, Delphi drives an innovative strategies to cultivate inclusive workplaces. Delphia currently serves as the Chief Inclusion Officer for large-scale national organizations, spearheading initiatives to promote diversity and foster belonging. With over 2 decades of distinguished leadership, Delphia possesses extensive expertise in optimizing human capital. That's a long one. Can I skip the bottom?
Sure, sure. That's
All
fine.
right, give me a second. Give me a second. I'll copy here. Put it across here where I can work with it. Or did
There's
you have a short one that you like?
as you're talking, I'm trying to find it. There should be, does it say anything about the book on there? 'Cause I'll find
Eventually it does.
it. Okay. I have a short bio. Sorry.
Yes, Delphia is the author of the new book, Including You, leading inclusion from where you are, but it doesn't say anything else about the book.
Okay.
Let me see if I can.
1 second. Always when you're trying to find something quickly, that's when you
Yeah. Yeah.
really. But, see, that's even longer. I think that was my short bio.
Have you used ChatGPT?
Um, I have, you know what I did? I don't think I've used it for my bio. Someone wrote
I
this.
just I just gave ChatGPT your bio and I said, "Can you shorten it for me?" Here's
Really?
what it says.
Okay.
I'm really happy to introduce today's guest, Delphia L. Howze. Is it? And it's Howze, right? Not
House.
Howsey or
No
okay.
house.
An award-winning HR and diversity and inclusion leader. As CEO of Howze Solutions, she drives strategies to create inclusive workplaces and currently serves as Chief Inclusion Officer for a national organization. With over 20 years of experience across sectors like retail, banking, higher education, Delphia has made a significant impact on optimizing human capital and fostering belonging. She is also an adjunct instructor, keynote speaker, and author of the new book, Including You, Leading Inclusion from Where You Are. Does it feel like it's missing something?
That
Or
feels
did
good.
ChatGPT nail it?
That's fantastic.
All right, that's what I'm going to use for the podcast.
Perfect. Send it to me because I'll use that somewhere else. That's great.
Give me a second. I'm going to do that now before I forget.
That's great.
Short chat GPT bio. Okay. All right. I've got all my windows in the right spot. I am ready.
Let's do it.
Oh, except I lost my track. I was being all clever with my clap, but it's my visual for when I send it to the editor.
I love it.
Welcome to season 2 of the Happy Sensory Corner podcast. At Mendability, as you know, we want to help everyone, especially when they're vulnerable, to feel happier, more comfortable in their own skin, more confident so that they can be their true selves. And we can all journey together through life more happily. Our contribution is to work on brain health. As our brains grow stronger and healthier, all of us benefit, but especially those among us who struggle with sleep or who are overwhelmed by the barrage of information from the environment or who struggle with their bodies, with abstraction. We developed a program that boosts brain development and activates the brain's self-healing mechanisms with short hands-on games based on the neuroscience field of environmental enrichment. And we call it sensory enrichment. And so we're experts in boosting brain development, but we're not experts in everything. For example, we're not experts in why you eat, physical activity, advocacy, education, job training. And so today, I'm really happy to introduce you to our guest, Delphia L. Howze. Delphia is an award-winning HR and diversity and inclusion leader. She is the CEO of Howze Solutions. She drives strategies to create inclusive workspaces. I was going to say workspaces, workplaces, and currently serves as Chief Inclusion Officer for a national organization. And with over 20 years of experience across sectors like retail, banking, higher education, Delphia has made a significant impact on optimizing human capital but also fostering belonging. Delphia is also an adjunct instructor, keynote speaker, and she's the author of a new book, Including You, Leading Inclusion from Where You Are. Delphia, thank you so much for being on the show today.
What a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm honored because, like I said, we've got this niche thing where we can help brains do fantastic things, but what do you do after that? What do you do with the adults who grow into happy, independent adults who want to pay taxes, get into relationships? Um, what can we do on our end to make those workplaces a welcoming space for those individuals? And this is why I was excited to invite you. So I'd like to start with, if you don't mind, you telling us a little bit about what inspired you. Why are you a diversity and inclusion HR director?
Yes, yes. And so I will tell you that my inspiration came to me by happenstance. It is not, when I was in college, I didn't say, hey, this is what I want to do. I was on my way to become a high-powered attorney. That was my dream of life. And, life said that I would take another path. And what inspired me to be a D&I leader and an H&O, a human resources leader is simply the reality that I enjoy working with people and I enjoy the differences of people. And those differences are so very vast and come in so many different ways and come in for so many different reasons. And in the workplace, as I was, growing as a professional, I recognized that not always were individuals taken care of in the workplace. And I recognized very early that there were two defaults, two challenges to that lack of care, and that either came at the risk of individuals not being able to do their best work, not being able to be successful, or the organization not being able to do its best work and not being able to be successful. So, in order to ensure that we have success in both realms, in both areas, we had, in my opinion, and what inspired me is the reality that we had to have a space for managing and helping people to manage through mental hygiene and to be able to find their space of belonging within organizations, of inclusion within organizations. And my inspiration came simply from the realization that we're all human, we all have these factors. In the workplace, it's even more critical to manage and manage in a positive and productive way.
You said a word that I haven't heard a lot of people say, mental hygiene, and I am dying to ask you what you mean by that. But I don't want you I don't want you to get away with what the story you've given us. I think there's a story behind that story. Is there a special person? Is there a journey for you? Maybe a story that makes you feel vulnerable? Can you share with our audience the real why behind the why? What happened in little Delphia's little life that just, drove you to, like, because you say you want people to feel comfortable at work and you're noticing those things and maybe other people are not, noticing. Those bosses are like managing people and they're not using words like mental hygiene.
Yeah.
Why? So what in your life has shaped you to see those things?
Sure. I can tell you without a doubt, it's the sense of belonging. So I grew up, you asked the question, what happened in little Delphia, right?
Yep.
If you saw me, I'm still little, I haven't grown, much in height, but what happened for me is, and I remember this so very clearly, in the 11th grade, and going back several years, in the 11th grade, I had an experience where, a well-intended teacher was giving us the demographics of our society, and it was a sociology class, and she was telling, pretty much saying who's going to be successful and who's not, who's doomed and who's not doomed in the classroom. And essentially, people went. people who look like me, African American girls were at that time projected to not be successful, projected to be in uh, uh, situations, life situations that were not conducive for them to be successful going forward. So that sense of belonging, and it's so funny because I remember that distinctly, because I said I will not be one of those statistics, right? That is not a place where you are going to put me in. That's not an opportunity for you to put me in a box and have me stay there. I'm okay with disappointing that statistic, and it be, 11th grade, high school, full of thought processes and opportunity. It was my decision that there was something that I needed to do differently to not be a part of that statistic that said that people who look like me would not be. And actually, there were only two African American people in my classroom, and it was me and another young lady. And I said, that cannot be my story. I do not come from an area that is very well established. I come from an area that's pretty, economically unsound. And, the thought process was that that is where I would be for the rest of my life. And that didn't set well with me. So I did what I thought at the time was the best thing to do is go against the norm, applied for college, the norm in that community, I should say. Applied for college, started to ask questions, started to learn outside of the box for which I was in. And as I began to ask those questions, I began to learn more. And it piqued my curiosity. And I just never wanted anyone to feel a sense of exclusion or lack of belonging because I understood what that felt at that particular time, and I didn't like
There you
it.
go.
There's the
Mm.
story.
I think it's important to start with that. I think it's peop our parents, the people listening, they have kids who are outside of the box, and they're also projected to not be the successful ones. And we've got many of those parents who are driven to say, no, this is not going to be my child's story. And so I wanted them to hear that, it works. It works. Follow your, what should we call it? Calling?
Yeah, follow your passion, your gut, your inside inquisitive nature, right? I think in many people, I won't say most, but in many people, there's this inquiry to find what else. What other options, what other opportunities are there? Even if we don't know what they are, like, for example, in my story of my little me, right? I've had no uh, concept or knowledge of the path that I've taken, career-wise, right?
Yeah,
So I didn't know, all I knew was that uh, you either had to be a doctor or a lawyer to be successful. That was my purview.
that's
And
right.
so, like I said, my projected path was to be a high-powered attorney. And going back to the thought process, even if you don't know what it is, there's this burning desire to identify what's beyond where we are today. And if you don't
Hmm.
begin to ask those questions and satisfy that curiosity in some way, I think we miss those opportunities.
So you spent all those 20 years in, getting to the point where, you're the chief inclusion officer or the national organization, and they're really lucky to have this person who's driven to make everybody feel not like little Delphia felt back in the day. And I think that's awesome. So tell me how this relates to the book you just wrote.
This book is something that's been in the making for several years now. I have really recognized throughout my career that we don't treat each other well. We don't create spaces for people to be their authentic selves, to be their best selves in the workplace. And it's not because we're malicious, mean, nasty individuals. We just don't take responsibility and we don't know how to be vulnerable in that space. And so, with my book, it's really focused on how do we shift the narrative around diversity and inclusion to really focus on inclusion so that we don't have those situations where people feel
You're
like,
saying so many things. I need to take notes. Give me 1 second. I don't want to follow the lose the train of thought.
okay, or
Sorry. Go ahead.
no, it's fine. Um, how do we get people to really think about the inclusionary piece, the part that recognizes the value of all of the differences and similarities that are there and creates an environment that values those differences and similarities, not counting the numbers, not saying we have more women than men, more men than women. That's going to be a numbers game, but realizing that if we don't take the opportunity to create inclusive environments from all perspectives, we're not going to have diversity, we're not going to attract diversity, and we're not going to keep diversity. Inclusion will sustain and maintain diversity. And so,
Say that again. I think you just dropped a bomb there.
oh, did I? With it, I said inclusion will maintain and sustain diversity. I think that's what I said.
Yes, inclusion will maintain diversity. Um, okay. There's a couple of different directions we could go, and we could go all corporate here, but I think I want to step back and think like a mom of a kid right now. And maybe my kid is an adult. Maybe he's turning 18, 19, and he's employable, right? Let's say he's done our mendability brain development program and he's ready to go. Give me something to do, give me some people to help, give me a place where I can contribute. What advice would you give to a mom? What is the biggest, if you only had one, you've got this elevator ride with that mom and she's telling you, oh, my kid is, and you're about to go to your meeting, to your big, chief inclusion officer, chief inclusion officer meeting. So you've got 10 seconds to tell her, whatever you do,
Whatever you do, value that child for who they are. I think that's the big piece. Value the child for who they are and don't try to force change, um, cast aspersions, or cast expectations on that child. We have to allow our children, no matter where they are on the spectrum, on the very wide spectrum of life, of diversity, of neurodiversity, all of those things, no matter where they are, we have to allow them to blossom from where they are. A flower will not blossom if you pluck it and don't provide it with all of the necessary elements in a different environment. A flower will blossom more strongly and more vibrantly when you allow it to stay where it is and grow from that particular space of origination.
there is a Facebook meme I saw some time ago, and I remember liking it a lot. It said something to be, and it showed a fish among flowers or something, and people were trying so desperately to make the fish belong with the flowers, and the fish started to think like a flower, and it never worked because he was a fish. And then he was transplanted into this place where there were fish, and then he blossomed. Now, there's a couple of things I liked about that thing, but it's something I didn't like, and I think you would be the perfect person to explain. I just, put you on the spot. The problem is with this thinking is, wait a minute, those people are fish that don't belong with flowers, and really this company all wants flowers. Is diversity of flowers. You can have red flowers, blue flowers. We don't need a fish to come and mess everything up because now we need aquariums, and neither is so there are weaknesses in this analogy. How what what analogy would you come up that would be better than that? Because you said to the mom in the elevator, you only had 10 seconds, but now with us, you can explain to us why you said what you said. So do not, um, do not try to change. your child value who he is,
Mhm.
because if he has a strong sense of who he is, from there he can grow. But if he's unsure about who he is because he's put all those pressures and he's like, if so, all right, I've thrown a whole bunch of stuff at you.
Yeah. No, that's great. And you're really making me think that because that's a very great I love that analogy or the meme or the image that you shared with us. Um I think that if I were to think of something that's similar to pull that to add to that, um I think about creating the environment for individuals or for your child to be successful, right? In addition to allowing them to be who they are. So oftentimes we want to change people, just like you said, we want to change the fish so that they fit with the flowers, or we want to change the color of the flower so the fish fits in. But the beauty of creating an inclusive environment means that we are allowing individuals or entities, whomever's in the environment, whomever or whatever is in the environment, to be as they are and recognizing the value and beauty that they possess and bring to the environment and leveraging that towards productivity. If we don't, by not doing that, we thwart the opportunity for the individual to blossom, to reach their full potential, and to feel intrinsically, I can't say the word, valued for who they are. And then they begin to question, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? Should I be here? Should I not be here? And that's when people sink into themselves instead of connecting with others. So I think that there's a wonderful uh, image that's in my mind, a parable that speaks about a giraffe and an elephant. And essentially, it speaks to the fact that there's if you invite a giraffe, if you're an elephant and you invite a giraffe into your home, right? You must create a space where the giraffe can feel comfortable. So think about a house for an elephant. It probably has wide walls, maybe a little shorter than what a giraffe's home would have, but wide, not walls, but wide hallways, corridors, or what have you, doorways. And a giraffe probably would be more slender, taller, etc. Right? How do we create an environment where both can be who they are, not have to acquiesce to the standards of the other so that they both can be successful? And it's really an opportunity for us to think about what can I do personally, and even parents, what can I do personally to help this other individual, whether it's a child, colleague, friend, or what have you, to help this other individual to be successful as they are.
You're talking about corporate culture, right? A culture of, hey, we're all elephants here, and this guy looks like a giraffe. I wonder if he's going to need a higher ceiling. Like, what kind of self-confidence do you need as because you got your own problems to deal with, you know, and maybe you're the elephant, and maybe you're an elephant, right? And then you're trying to accommodate a giraffe, but you're living in a world of cheetahs. And then, so you're an elephant, and you too haven't really been fitting in very well, but you're okay. And people are used to the elephants coming in, and they're starting to get used to them. But then there's this giraffe. It's like, oh crap, I've got this
I
whole other set
know.
of problems. So you need to be in a good, confident space to
Yeah.
be able to say, okay, let me think outside of my own needs for a second. What does this person need?
Yes. And
So
not, I'm
how
sorry.
do you get to that point? Or is there even something even further back than that in a process of becoming inclusive? Do you
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think the big piece of that, what comes to mind for me is to not be in a mindset of deficit, right? That by allowing or encouraging or engaging or bringing in the cheetah or the giraffe, or, whomever, the difference in the room, that I'm going to lose something. right? I think that's the big piece of the puzzle for humans is we all want to maintain our our safety or self-preservation is a real thing for humans. And when we realize the power of the impact of self-preservation and how it plays out and how it causes us to exclude and think that we're going to lose something and think that we're going to miss out because someone else is getting a bigger piece of the pie or another piece of the pie. That's operating from a deficit mindset. And so, how do we get there? Is to really operate from more of a growth and open mindset that allows us to really think that, okay, the space is large enough for all the cheetahs and elephants or whomever, or whatever, in it, around. And if we modify some of the change, some of the environment, the structural outlay, then we could get the benefit and the advantages of the giraffe because guess what? Now we don't have to figure out how to create these long, extensive ladders to get to the stuff on the top shelf, right? If we modify the structures and structural outlay of where we are and how we operate, then we don't have to worry about I'm just thinking about the strength of an elephant. The walls being knocked down every time an elephant walks by, or something like that. But there's value in every single person and every single individual. They bring those unique strengths. And if we take time to realize that we're not losing something by gaining those strengths, I think we're in a better place.
What's the coolest story of maybe somebody turning around or a group, receiving your coaching or your training, doing something against their nature and really loving the result?
Great question. I go to a CEO that I worked with in the past, banking CEO, and he was um, had been in the business for a very long time, been in his position for a long time, and had made many decisions that kind of thwarted the opportunities for women to grow within the organization. People who were different from him to grow within the organization. So if you looked out at his cabinet, they all looked like him, literally. And so what I recognize what, through our coaching, through our conversation, I took him through what was at the time called unconscious bias training and bring elevating awareness to some of those things. And at some point he turned to me and said, Delphia, you know what? I'm ashamed to say this, but I have single-handedly thwarted the opportunity for women to be successful in senior ranks in this organization. That was a point of realization for him. And so we explored that and realized that, his perspective was he grew up with the perspective that women were at home. That was his background. Mother, grandmother, aunts, uncles, I mean, aunties were at home. Men were out doing, man stuff, working, etc. And through that revelation, he said, you know what? I'm embarrassed of that and ashamed of that. And because here's the kicker. The universe blessed him with two daughters who were graduating and they were in college. One was graduating from college and the other would soon graduate a couple of years later. And he was afraid that his daughters would experience the same missed opportunities that he had unfortunately cast upon others. So he became one of the biggest proponents of and supporters of the work that I was doing to help shift the mindset so that we could encourage other groups to be a part of successful organization and leadership roles.
All right. Going back to that mom, she was in that elevator. You had 10 seconds and you say, okay, I don't have time to give you the whole spiel. The one thing you need to know is make sure your son feels solid, valued for who he is today. Love him. I'm putting words in your mouth and you correct me, but I'm hearing make him feel like no matter what he's going to do now, there's nothing he can do that would make you love him less or her.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
And from that place of confidence, you believe that of all the things that that mom could do, I mean, there are other things, and I'm going to ask you what the second one and the third one is, but the number uno thing that she can do is help instill that sense of confidence in this child. Okay, so what's the now you meet her again? Circumstances, my goodness, another meeting. She lives in the same office building. Okay, and you meet her again. You're going to this second meeting. Say, hey, how's it going? So, oh, I love unconditional love. We're awesome. It took us a while because I realized that I was trying to push him to become more employable for this position, and he wasn't comfortable at all. But all of a sudden, we realized that he had this particular talent. And all this time, he'd been hiding it kind of from me, but now we kind of lead into it. And now, oh, I think he'd be awesome at this. Okay, perfect. What's step number two?
Step number two is to leverage his passions and talents, I believe. So you've nurtured him, right? Him or her. You've nurtured this child, and you've allowed them to blossom into their authentic self. And so now step number two is to encourage and foster that growth and development from by leveraging the what has blossomed, right? Help them to see that whatever they have become, whatever they have found comfort in being,
What a
and
beautiful way of saying it. I
yes,
sorry, I'm interrupting you,
that's fine.
but it's too late. I'm the ship has sailed, and I'm going to lean into this. Um, whatever he has found comfort in is a powerful way of describing, I think, to parents what passion is like,
Mm.
especially for a child or an adult with some neurodivergence. Because our world is far from being this beautiful, comfortable place for everyone. We're still learning. And so these neurodivergent individuals suffer partly because of our ignorance, partly because of, the way their brain is wired and is actually, not processing some things. And so they don't have a whole lot in life. And so when it feels to me, that's the way I'm seeing it. And I'm already feeling a lot of people being offended by what I just said. Oh, I'm going to continue. I'm going to finish my thought.
Yeah.
I feel like once you've nurtured that person and they now are free to be who they are wired to be, and that's basically they're now comfortable instead of trying to be something that they're not. Now they can be who they are, and that's their comfort place. That's their place. So that's their comfort zone. And we talk about stretching you and going out of your comfort zone, and this is where you discover your passion. I feel like for a lot of people, they will discover how good they are at something within that comfort zone. And I think that's where we should encourage people to look for their passion. Where am I, where would you like to correct me on that?
No, I have no correction. I 100% agree with you. I think finding that.
Great, then you can also co-offend people with me. Thank you for knowing me.
No, I don't think quite honestly, I don't think what you said is offensive. I think that it's all perspective and how it is taken in and how it is interpreted. So, nurturing a person or your child and any individual is necessary. Allowing them to find that comfort in who they are and what has been nurtured is necessary. And when I think about that, I mentioned leveraging those skills uh, that found comfort towards success. So I'll give you a perfect example. So I work for one of the nation's largest national laboratories, and the interesting thing about that is, we're full of scientists. We're full of, research individuals, scientists. And I'll never forget a conversation that I had. I actually was having a large conversation, but someone spoke up and said, and with regard to how they got into research and science and the field for which they were in. And he said that he was always discouraged from moving the needle on his curiosity for science, right? But it was a switch that he couldn't turn off. It was something in him that was so very necessary for him to understand, to be a
An
part of.
urge,
Yes,
a
yes, absolutely.
drive.
But the others didn't understand it. His parents didn't understand it. They're telling him, well, you need to stop that. Put that, that petri dish down, whatever the case may be, because they didn't understand it. They weren't comfortable with it. And they thought that his path should be a different way. But the reality is, if they would have nurtured him, and I'm not casting any aspersions on their parenthood or anything like that, but if they would have nurtured his natural desire, his tendency, his urge to be inquisitive with regard to science, he said this himself. These are not my words. He would have been so much more successful so much earlier in life. And so the missed opportunity of time in him trying to acquiesce to what his parents wanted him to be and do and etc., while that urge was still a reality for him, he said he missed several years. Actually, he went through, I think, the first 2 or 3 years of college trying to be, you know, study what they wanted him to study. And finally, he said he came to a point where he realized this is where he needed to be in the science realm, and he's very very successful and happy and productive.
Do thank you for that story. Is there a so you talked the first two steps are very in the home kind of steps. They're like set up the foundation, make nurture the child, love them unconditionally, see what bubbles up in terms of their passions and interests, and then you talk about leveraging that. At what point do they, and maybe is it ever the parent's responsibility to advocate for their neurodiverse child to ensure that they're treated inclusively and maybe your expertise is in work environments, but what about educational environments? So at what point, if I can't think of anybody else, I think it's the responsibility of the parent. I don't know who else it falls on. Are there allies for neurodiverse people? What have you seen works the best for advocating for those people?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. So,
And
you
when I
know,
say advocating for those people, I don't want to sound condescending because I'm fully aware that by stretching the bubble, the corporate bubble a little bit, you can become so much more powerful as an entity because now you've got a place where you can have very unique talents comfortable giving you the best they have because instead of 10 balding men in the boardroom, now you can have all sorts of perspectives, and we all know that this is the better the more the better path to become a successful corporation. So and I just sometimes the words don't come out quite the way I meant to be. But at what point is it the responsibility? Who is? Why, my goodness, I'm going to come up with the right question. Who is the best person to make changes happen in an educational work environment so that that person who now has this discovered talent can come in and contribute to that company? Whose
yes,
job is it?
I think it's everyone's job. That's what I speak to in my book. I love what if I can just go back a bit. You started with, does should a parent advocate? Absolutely. I think they're as humans, our first advocates are our parents, right? That they are the ones that are speaking about us when we're not in the room. They're the ones who are, nurturing us and seeing that talent so that it could be leveraged, and then they advocate for us. But in the workplace and in the education system, whose responsibility is it? There will be some who disagree with me and who don't see it this way, but I think it's everyone's responsibility. We all, every single person, can have has a place and an opportunity to create an inclusive environment for all, right? We can easily and conversely create an exclusive environment, right? So we have the power, right? We as individuals have that individual power to create the environments for which individuals feel welcomed, valued, no matter what their background or purview is. Every single person has that ability to do so. And I,
Okay, I'm gonna not let you get away with that. Or maybe I need you to explain a bit in what you mean by it's everyone
yes,
responsibility. It's
yes.
let me give you a personal example.
Hmm.
I've got a queer child
Hmm.
and they've been bullied. They were bullied at school a lot, right? Um, and the discussions we had, how do we change that? How do we change the culture? How do we and say is my child create not created but joined a what is it called, gay something alliance, and I don't see it tells you how ignorant I am because I didn't even I don't remember. It's a GSA golf gay something alliance. um oh my goodness. Anyway, joined a group, an advocacy group. But the click or the breakthrough for me was, but it's when normal looking people advocate for our perspective that things truly change. And it's this concept of allies, they're the people who are they belong inside, they're inside the box, and people are comfortable with these people being inside the box, and because they don't challenge things. And when those people challenge the status quo, the people inside the box listen. Because people outside the box trying to knock on the box and say, hey, we belong in the box too, they're like not really listening. You know what I mean? And so when I asked you who is the best advocate, I was expecting you would say, "Well, it's the people who belong in the box," like my personal experience was. But you didn't say that. So you surprised me, and so I'd like to know a little bit more why. I'd like you to teach me.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. I agree with your perspective. I don't disagree with it. I think that's the reality of where we are. But I believe that there's an opportunity to shift the narrative and reject the belief or the mindset that it's others' responsibility or opportunity to say who's in the box, what's in the box, and how the box should look. So, I really want to highlight the point that we all possess an intrinsic power to create an inclusive environment, no matter what background or demographic there is in the environment or in the box. We as individuals should not wait for others to do things that say, okay, now it's inclusive, so come along. Or now it's inclusive, so we're only going to let X, Y, and Z person type in. The opportunity for each and every person to say, okay, we recognize the value of all of the individuals inside and outside of the box. And we recognize the power of that value. That comes from that can, let me say, it can, I don't think it does today because of where we are in society, but it can have a very positive effect on how we allow people to be who they are. And if we don't take the opportunity to, at some point, say, hey, we're responsible, we individually. Inclusion begins with I for a reason, right? Inclusion begins with I because I need to be responsible for helping to perpetuate inclusive environments, and I can do so. I think until we do that, we will continue to see this divide of us versus them. We'll continue to see the divide of who's in the box and who's out of the box, and who we should open the door or window to let in the box, but shut it really quickly so the others don't come in or the others don't go out of the box. I think that that is very important to recognize that the who is us.
All right. So you meet that mom again in the elevator. It's a year later now. And she's like, my son has discovered this
He's my
passion
best friend
for,
by now.
oh, and now you're going to invite her over for dinner so you can have a real conversation and finish those short bursts of sentences because she's hungry for advice. So she's done a really good job at step one. She's nurtured her, like, I'm going to embrace a gender. It's a son. And that boy is now 19 and they discovered that nobody can, I don't know what talent we could use as an example. Nobody can point out breaks in a pattern like he does. Okay. He can look at things and they don't even look like patterns to anybody else, but he sees patterns. And in the seeing the patterns, he's like, oh, there's a break in that pattern. So we weren't even seeing the pattern. Now he's seeing breaks in the pattern. So the employer's like, oh, I don't know how to use this, but this is very employable. We'll find a job for him. So now what's step three?
Support. Support and resources, I think, is step three.
Support. Support what?
Support the individual. As you said, this individual is able to see patterns in different ways, etc. But support their uh, their perspective by providing the resources and the advocacy that will allow that to continue to grow.
Support this is a big word. I'm hearing because I'm thinking, okay, I have a kid who's a very talented figure skater. Um, he can go all the way to the Olympics. Okay, well that is going to be expensive because now he needs to go and get time on the ice to practice 2, 3, 4 hours a day. Now they need equipment because the equipment is going to wear out and it's expensive to get professional figure skating stuff. And the coach, we need the best coach. Maybe we need to move to a better city because that's where the coaches are for the Olympic athletes. So that's one way of supporting. Is this what you mean by like
So
how do you encourage that kind of talent? Do you mean okay, find ways for that talent to be used and nurtured and developed? Is that what you mean by support?
yes. So what I mean by support is, not financial, right? Of course, financial support is always wonderful and welcomed, right? You have to do certain things, absolutely. But the support that I'm speaking of is the support that says, I'm there for you, right? The support that says, I am there to encourage you. If you fall back, I'm there to push you forward. If you need an additional resource, I'll help you find it. I'm walking in lockstep with you to help you to continue to leverage that skill or that urge, that burning desire that you have to be successful. So when I say support, not necessarily talking about monetarily or just financial support, but I'm talking about the support of you being an anchor of the mom being an anchor for that individual so that they can continue to grow and blossom. It kind of goes back to the nurturing piece because it's almost like a full circle. You continue to you're nurturing, you're leveraging, and then you're supporting, and then you do it all over again. But I think that support piece is really being right there as a solid foundation for that individual to feel confident and comfortable and continuing to walk their path.
All right. We got steps one, two, and three. Is there a step four?
Ooh. Step forward, you know what? I say just
Because remember, you're having dinner now, and the
yeah.
mom is grilling you. Is like, oh, I love everything you're saying. She's taking notes, and she's like, what do I do? Is there a step four? Because I mean, the objective is my 19-year-old boy in that story is going to move on
Yeah.
to become employed, and hopefully it's maybe it's one of your labs, right?
Yeah.
Because your buddies, right, in the elevators. Adelphi said, you know what? I've got to I need somebody like your son to come and fit in this place that I've been nurturing this team, and they're like ripe and ready for somebody like your son.
Yeah.
How do they find the Delphias of the world to employ their son? What are at what point and what responsibility does mom play in finding the Delphias of the world?
Yeah. I think this I think the next step what comes next is letting them soar, right? Letting them, you've given them, in my opinion, all of the essentials. You've nurtured and through that nurturing, you've loved, right? You've helped them to solidify who they are. You've helped them to leverage who they became. You've helped them to know that they're not alone through your support. Now it's time to let them soar. I think that that's the next step. So, how do we find those individuals at our laboratory or within any organization? I think it's by finding those individuals who are soaring, who are ready to take that next step to say, "Hey, here's all that I bring to the table."
How do they find the companies where they have somebody like you? Do they Google companies with a diversity and inclusion officer? Do you think every company that has a DNI officer are ready?
I don't. If I can be very candid, I think that. Uh, what we've noticed in the US, I'll just speak US based, is that there's a lot of performative work going on with regard to diversity and inclusion, and we know that there's a lot of discomfort with it as well. And so some companies are dismantling, some institutions or educational institutions are dismantling some of the efforts. And I believe that that is because it's twofold. We've not educated people well on this. Historically, it's not been um,
So you're saying that diversity and inclusion online videos that I watched when I was in a company are not good enough?
I don't think the videos are good enough. I think we have to get away from the performative action, the performative thought process and structures of DNI, of just checking the box and saying that we did it just for the sake of saying it. It has to be embedded and woven into the fabric and everyday activities and action of the organization. And so, how does someone find that type of organization? You have to really sift through um, the videos, the surface videos that are there. Every company has a video that's
So
it.
if you're a mom of that 19-year-old talented person, how do you find them that company? So if you're looking for a company that has a DNI officers not enough, or is there a set of clues? Do you have like a guide? Here are the 5 signs that this company is inclusive.
Ooh, I top of mind, I don't have top five, but I can give you some ideas.
All
If you,
right, let's make up some top fives.
yes,
Number
yes.
one, they have
Number
a
one.
DNI officer. It's got to be a clue,
And so if you see
right?
if you see a company that puts a video out there that says we're inclusive, we value diversity, we value inclusion, and it's a sea of only men, only one demographic group in the video, they're not an inclusive
Are they
organization.
walking the walk? Okay. All
Exactly.
right. All
Exactly.
right.
That's
So, what look at the corporate uh fuzz puff pieces, the stuff that they say about themselves, and see, am I seeing somebody like me in that
okay.
video?
Yeah.
And am I seeing people not like me in the videos? Is there a diversity of people in there? Okay, so all right. So watch, okay, clue number one, what promotional videos they put out and watch if they're actually inclusive. All right.
Yeah.
This is good. This is good.
Oh.
Um, what other clues to look for?
I think in addition to that, really thinking about it's kind of on the same line, but not the same. But in their marketing strategies, right? Who are they marketing to, right?
How do
Who
you know
is
who they're
their
marketing
audience?
to?
Who are they speaking to when they are speaking about their product or their service, right? Are they only speaking to individuals who wear green hats, right? Or are they speaking to individuals who wear hats across the spectrum? So who is the audience? I think that's another piece.
Tell me more. I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why.
Mhm.
The marketing training I've received is for your message to be magnetic, for people to really resonate with what you have to say. You have to pick to be very focused on who you're speaking with, and so you have to pick the type of hat you want to speak with.
Don't disagree.
The wider you cast a net, the more diluted your marketing message. So, what do you mean by who are they talking
Yeah.
to?
So let me maybe go a little deeper. So if you have a company that is only, so I'm going to stick with hat analogy, that is only concerned about individuals who wear who wear green hats. I'm going to stick with that. Who wear green hats. And as a company, you're known for making hats, right? But your marketing is only speaking for the company whole to that one demographic group versus reaching a swath of individuals who wear hats of different colors, then you're missing the opportunity and you're missing the opportunity to demonstrate diversity. So if a company typically is not going to have one product, one item, they have a overall product or service, and then they have subsets or subgroups of products and services. If the overarching product, their mission, their purpose is only serving one demographic group, then that's, in my opinion, not a fully diverse organization
All right, let me share
or
with
an
you.
organization that values inclusion. Let me say that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to describe to you who I think our ideal client is, and you're going to give me a diversity grade. Okay, and I need you to be 100% honest. I need you to tell me A plus, yes, B, C, D, F. Okay. Our ideal client has we have five descriptors for our ideal client, and for each descriptor, I've got a couple of sentences. Our ideal client is emotionally invested and family centered. And by that, we mean that they prioritize the child's happiness and well being over performance and appearance. And they've made meaningful lifestyle changes to reduce stress and foster joy for the child. That's what I mean by number one. Number two, they're hopeful for lasting change. They want to hear that their child will get to a point where they will no longer need therapy to be a happy, independent adult. And they don't subscribe to this idea that the child's challenges are permanent. Okay, hopeful. Three, they're motivated but disillusioned. So they've become frustrated with the lack of results from traditional therapies and the long wait times in the healthcare system, but they're proactive in researching new solutions. Four, they're empowered and selective. And by that I mean they value clinical evidence, they're discerning about the sources of information to consume, they appreciate expert guidance, but they respect their own deep knowledge of their child's needs and preferences. And for the final one is they're willing to invest in quality care. They've spent probably thousands already on therapies, equipment, and other interventions, but they're not afraid to invest more if they find the solution that delivers the real lasting results they're looking for. So that's our ideal client. That's who we talk to in our marketing. And
So
now I'm nervous.
No, please don't be nervous because I think that's phenomenal. So yes, you're speaking to a specific group of individuals with what was it, five very distinct characteristics, right?
So you
Five,
can see, right? I'm speaking to people. They're wearing a blue hat.
they're wearing a blue hat. They're wearing a
And
blue
if they're
hat.
wearing green hat, they're not gonna like I'm not interested in parents who want their kid to be good at math. That's
Right.
not what I want. I want parents who are interested in their kid being happy. So
Absolutely.
that's two hats.
Yes. So you want parents who are interested in their kids being happy, who can provide the resources, all of those things. I think that, so I still give that a top grade. Here's the interesting thing. That is not saying that anyone outside of that is excluded. Because if I want my child to be happy and meets all of those five criteria,
Yeah.
I happen to also or exclusively want something, I shouldn't say exclusive, but also want something else for my child or see things a different way, that doesn't mean that you're saying, nope, you can't be a part of this, right? That doesn't
Okay.
mean that you're saying we're not interested in servicing you and bringing you into our organization or what have you. That what you're saying to me is that you have five very specific objectives or opportunities for the organization. You're not excluding people for who they are.
It's true. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, what religion, or
Correct.
if any. There's
You're not saying
some of those things
only.
are not included in there,
Mhm,
but how they the values they value clinical evidence
mhm.
over um, non-clinical evidence. I mean, there's some stuff out there that looks really attractive, but is founded on it's shaky ground, right? And we're not interested in people who will very excited about the next thing. Um, so anyway,
And so
okay,
I think
all
I
right. Well,
wouldn't,
too for the grade.
yeah, I think
I
your
don't
grade
feel
is fine. I think you're right there, and I don't want you to anyone to think that you know we can't have intersectionality with regard to how we engage and appreciate people for whom organizations are reaching out to. There's an intersectional consideration with regard to that. But if it's only one dimensional, that's where we're missing the opportunity for the true inclusion.
right. Okay, so any other clues on how to find a corporate culture,
The job
a
description.
company that has a culture of of everybody is not only welcome, but they're encouraged.
Yeah,
Because
I
I
would
think this is what
say
happens, right? In a company that that discovers the potential, the business potential of diversity, they now like seek it out.
yeah.
So how do you know that they're seeking out diversity?
You'll know also within the job a job description. Now, a job description isn't shouldn't ask personal information. You will have self-identifying opportunities within a job description or with an application. I'm sorry, but the job description, you can look at a job description, read the words, and give the words will give indication to the language for which they use. So, for example, a lot of organizations are moving towards, and for the life of me, it's not coming to my brain, but gender neutral language, right? Language that speaks to and does not speak to he or she, right? In the past, job descriptions actually said use the pronouns he and she for who would be the best candidates for the position. So if you find a job description that has that, I would turn the other
Yeah,
way.
but those are like way behind in the times, I
Well,
imagine.
you would be surprised.
Oh,
Yeah, which is why now we have and again, it's escaping me, but which is why now we have we have programs that organizations actually utilize to scrub their job descriptions to ensure that they are gender neutral in terms of their language. So it's not that far back.
All right. Other clues, and I think to maybe something with I wanted to discuss with you. Maybe this is a good time to discuss it. And I know our episode is getting longer than advertised. Guys, thank you for sticking with us. I don't know if you are, but I'm really interested in this discussion of how to get our kiddos to find places where they will be nurtured as well as they have been at home. And that's super important. So you talked about unconscious biases, with that boss that had this unconscious gender bias, I imagine. Um, if we think about those unconscious biases that are influencing all the decisions we're making about who we're hiring, who we want to work with, and what kind of environment we want to work in, uh, so as you think about those, what clues can you find as a mom looking for a great place for your son, for that talented son? It's like, ooh, they're suffering from this unconscious bias. Or it looks like they're not suffering from this unconscious bias and they look like they're intentional about overcoming this. This is a good place. So tell us a little bit about those unconscious biases and what would be good signs that a company has got a culture of overcoming them.
Oh, I think so that's such a tricky question, right? Because there are biases, they are obviously prevalent in all of us, and because they're prevalent in all of us, they're prevalent in our organizations. The question is, how are we managing and finding ways to mitigate those biases so that we don't have negative outcomes
That's right.
based off, or impacts based off of the biases. And so I think that how one recognize that is, it would have to be, and I'm trying to think of an example. Um, it would have to be a blatant um, mishap. Actually, I can think of one. So I actually worked with an organization who was an advertising organization, and they did billboards, the large billboards. And in one area that was looking to increase, I'm sorry, not one area, one organization that was looking to increase their representation with regard to overall diversity, right? They wanted to expand, they wanted to grow, so they were posting for jobs. Here's the interesting thing: the job uh, 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 the billboard that was the advertising piece for the job openings gave a symbol that was gave a racially disparaging symbol unintentionally, right? And the individuals who created this image, this billboard, didn't recognize it. But guess who did recognize it? Those individuals who it was offensive to, those individuals who are familiar with it. And when it was brought to the organization's attention, at first, the first response was, well, it doesn't matter. We didn't mean to do it. So, no, the first response was, well, I don't see it. That was the first response. Through conversation, through demonstration, through, actually showing, then it was, well, we didn't do it on purpose. So it really doesn't matter. It's not important. Right. So that's, that to me is something that allowed the comfort of of their biases, to actually post something without checking and verifying, if there were just visually disparaging uh, images in this marketing uh, billboard. So I think that if a parent or that 19-year-old is looking for a job, there's an opportunity for them to really take a take a strong observation in terms of what are they observing with
But then
the
looking at this material, the content that they're producing and seeing
Mhm.
if it smells like an inclusive and an enriched
Absolutely.
environment, or if it's got a bit of an aftertaste of a closed-minded sort of governed by their unconscious biases type of company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And so what are those, what would you say are the top three unconscious biases that we should be aware of that
Mm. I think confirmation bias is one, probably affinity bias is another.
can you
We like,
define them?
yes, affinity bias is, we like people who are like us, right? I like people with glasses. I'm not saying this is true, but I have a bias with
And
people
both
who,
you and I are wearing glasses for those of
exactly.
us listening.
So I think we're both smart, right?
I,
Because
I know we are.
so that's affinity bias. Confirmation bias is a bias that we automatically have comforts or discomforts with individuals for a number of reasons, and that's another segment. But we automatically have those, and so oftentimes stereotypes or judgments are formed for individuals that we meet, right? So if it is a negative judgment or a stereotype that surfaces for an individual, and that individual does something that we think aligns with that stereotype or judgment, then that just confirms that, what they're one of those people, right?
And it
So
makes you ignore the all of the data that does not confirm your presupposition. And
absolutely.
so they did this one thing once, but they did this one thing differently nine other times. So on average, they're a lot more likely to do it this other way. But now you see, I don't know.
Yep.
They've
See,
done
I
it this
told
way.
you
I
so.
told you.
I told you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where that comes in, and that's very detrimental because, again, it doesn't allow people to show you who they are.
It's really hard. I mean, we could do a whole hour talking about unconscious biases and the power, the hold that they have on how we think. I mean, this confirmation bias is it's a protection mechanism
Oh,
that the
sure.
brain has established to protect, you know, a protection mechanism to protect the forgive the
You're right.
alliteration there,
You're
but
right. Bias serves a very distinct purpose to help us distinguish between safety and danger, right? For self-preservation. And so it's okay to have it. The question is, what do you do with it?
Mhm. So confirmation bias, affinity bias, is there another one that kind of has a hold on people that prevents them from seeing the power, the business potential of seeking diversity?
I think um, I, there's not another one that I think that is those are the two most prevalent for me. Another one that comes to mind is kind of uh, and I can't think of a term for it, but it really is around the horn and halo effect, right? So is a person good or is a person bad, right? And so an individual does one thing that we think is good, and now everything is, our bias becomes geared towards uh, the assumption that they have good intentions at all
So
times.
this idea that the first impression is the one that you leave forever, is that what you mean?
Yes, 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 absolutely. And then if they do something negative, something that's not, in your eyes considered positive, I'm sorry, something that's not considered positive in your eyes, then
It's kind of like
oftentimes
the confirmation bias, right? I mean, you
it's
you
kind of
had
like
10
confirmation
seconds to
bias.
make,
But
yeah.
with the confirmation bias, you have a stereotype, you have a perspective of an expectation of what they do.
Mm.
With horn and halo effect, it's more of what they actually do, not with your expectation.
So it's a better bias because you had this openness at first, and you were like, I don't know if it's a halo or a horn, and then but once you've made your mind up, then everything else is confirmation bias after that. See, I told you this guy was bad. Okay, all right. So it's not bad. So what do you look for in a job offer that that shows that the HR department at least is intentionally trying to overcome those three biases?
Yeah, I think, are they really interested in you, right? Are they asking questions that are helping them to learn about you and not casting their assumptions on what you can or will do within the organization, but are they asking the open-ended questions that allow you meaning
So
the
you think the job offer, instead of describing, I mean, in a lot of detail what the responsibility and the job will be, something more vague that says we're looking for somebody to help us in this team, but leave it vague? That
no, 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 no,
is
no.
that to you a good sign or a bad
No,
sign?
no, no, no. I think a job description, so I'm putting my HR hat on. A job description absolutely has to be concise, has to be defined, and has to be clear for individuals to understand what they're getting into and what the job is about. And if their skills match the required skills for success. So I think that that's absolutely necessary. However, or I should say, and when the candidate is speaking with the recruiter, is the recruiter during the interview
Okay, so
asking,
now we're past. Okay, okay.
yeah,
So I was still at I'm trying to figure out which company to send my talented 19-year-old
okay,
son to. I haven't got an interview yet.
you haven't gotten interviewed yet. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think the big piece is looking at
But
the,
it's true. It's not until you get the interview that you will know for sure. So
absolutely.
you can get those clues and those signs, and you can sift out those companies that are already don't look like they're interested in diversity,
Yeah.
and they're not interested in the long-term success of their company, apparently. But some of them are, but maybe during the interview you find out, maybe or not. So you
Yeah.
have to go in open-minded, and
Absolutely.
then it's okay for you to put your horn and halo hat on them, and then get out of there if it's a horn.
That's all right. Get out of
All
there.
right, all right.
Get those red flags.
Um, I want to finish with mental hygiene.
Sure.
I promised we would talk about that. You used that word at the beginning. I didn't hear a lot of people use those two words. So tell me what you mean by that.
Oh, mental
At what
hygiene.
point of our story with our 19-year-old does mental hygiene come?
You know, and I think that, so we talked about nurturing. What did we say? Nurturing, leveraging, supporting, and
Yes.
I
We
can't
didn't talk about a step four. I think step four,
soar.
I
No, we
made it
said
up. It
soar.
was
We
like,
said
look,
soar. We had allowing them to soar was step four.
okay.
So the mental hygiene piece, I think that comes from within. That comes from an individual perspective, taking care of ourselves so that our mental stability is solid. And so that
So
means,
that we're all comfortable being around people who are not like us, who are going to
yes,
challenge our confirmation
yes,
bias, who are going to challenge our affinity bias. Is like, you know what? This is actually fun. I'm learning. This is interesting.
yes.
But you
And
gotta
I'm
have this strong mental hygiene. Okay, I get
Yes, you
it.
have to have strong mental hygiene and you have to practice it, I think, consistently. So without strong mental hygiene, if without the awareness of your mental well-being in those spaces or in any space, let's say, then we revert back to um, uh, periods of discomfort and we again go within. So I think that mental hygiene really speaks to our our personal ability to manage our health, our mental health.
Yes, that's a good way of saying it, mental hygiene, because all of us understand you gotta brush your teeth, you gotta
Every
take a
day.
bath, right?
Yes,
And so you gotta bathe and brush your brain and your emotions and all of that stuff.
yes,
That
consistent.
makes your spirit makes
Hmm.
a lot. It's a good way of saying it because it removes when we talk about mental health, we're really talking about mental illness. And when we're
Yeah,
talking about mental illness, we're talking about neurodivergence most of the time. And there's a lot of baggage.
yeah,
Mental hygiene.
yeah.
I'm going to say mental hygiene all the time now. Thank you.
I
It's
love it.
such a good way of seeing the world, and I think this is a great high to end this podcast. Thank you so much for this, for talking to us today, Delphia. Um, any last words of wisdom you would like to impart to our parents who are really hoping that they can find a nurturing job?
I think something that I would like to encourage every person, every listener, every parent to realize is that it's important to recognize that inclusive environments are necessary or a necessary component for success, regardless as to who is involved, what demographic background, um, what spectrum of neurodiversity touches us or touches an individual. Inclusion is the key. And I always say that, I may have said it earlier, I don't recall, but inclusion begins with I, right? And always needs you. You can't have that word without those two letters. So it's important for parents to recognize that they can play a part in how their child can be moved along or helped along or supported along to be a part of inclusive environments.
Beautiful, beautifully said. Everybody listening to us, it was a pleasure, and we'll see you next week.
Bye bye. Thank you.